It's still setting up, and we're live.
There we go. There we go. We'll wait for the thousands and thousands to join us from around the globe. LSU was predicted to win this game, right?
Yes, LSU was predicted.
That's crazy. Big win for the Aggies here. So yeah, we'll get started here in just a moment. There we go. We're being recorded and we're on YouTube. Let me just get a new shape here. What games did you watch today?
Um, oh goodness, which one? Let's see. Oh, the Ohio State Nebraska game was my first game, and that was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. Um, let's see. Then I went to Oregon, Illinois, and that quickly got out of hand. So I switched it. Um, let's see here to the Alabama Missouri game, which was a lot closer in the first half, and then um, was just Alabama blew them out in the second half. So
Yeah, I was really going for J.R. Blood there in that fourth quarter. I was legit mad when Alabama brought their starters back in just to get a shutout. I was like, "Come on, guys, what are we doing here?" Like, I get you want the shutout, but is it really worth risking your like starters ACLs to not let a third string quarterback score a touchdown? Like, come on. I thought it was a little crazy, but who am I? Who am I to say? So
I am just doing one last post here
yeah,
for the
let's get
masses that we are live.
for the masses. We are live on YouTube. It says one watching. I think I am that one because I opened it up on my computer. But do you have a chat on your Zoom or no? Like, does that chat integrate right
Well,
away,
I'm
or
not.
would
We're
we
not.
have?
We're not sharing a screen, so we should be fine, right?
Hmm, I think.
Go ahead. Yeah, I've got the chat.
Yeah, I was looking on the chat on YouTube. Um, I have it just paused on YouTube, but I guess we'll keep an eye out there. We have one viewer. I'm pretty sure that viewer is me. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Sideline Podcast. My name is Kevin Showalter, and my co-host, as always, is Jared Booker. We are two best friends who love college football and hope to help you guys create unbeatable fantasy football teams. Thanks for joining us this evening. There's been a great day of college football, week 9. Week 9. And if you enjoy this content, check us out on X at Sideline FF Pod for even more content and Booker running wild in the comments section. Today, we're going to be breaking down a few of the big matches from the slate of games. Not, I say all of the fantasy football news, but in reality, we're not going to cover all of it. But we'll also go over some top priority waiver wire pickups and look forward to week 10 of college football. Kind of sad, man. I know we've said this the last couple weeks, but yeah, it's sort of a bummer how fast the football season is going. I'm not both college and NFL. I'm not too thrilled about it. I'm like, man, we're almost in November, but I'm very excited for the college football playoffs. So I'm kind of like, I wanted to slow down, but I also like, can the playoffs get started? So
So
anyway, without further ado, we've been doing this the last couple weeks. We're gonna do a little bit of trivia. So yeah, why don't you take it away, Book?
all right. Well, last week I got reprimanded by my co-host Kevin about how deep I took the trivia. Um, so this week I tried to do something a little more simple on the mind. So we'll see if that actually pans out. So I'm going to go ahead and ask a couple questions. So First question we have is, which ACC team is 5-0 in conference play? Is it A, Pittsburgh, B, Clemson, C, Miami, or D, SMU?
Oh, this is a good one. I'm trying to think of who's played like a lot of conference games so far. Um, I believe Pittsburgh has a loss. I don't think they're undefeated. Clemson
Don't.
has a loss, but I think that was to Georgia. Huh?
You don't think
Miami.
Pittsburgh is undefeated, huh?
Are they undefeated? I can
They
quickly.
are. They are
Oh, they are.
undefeated.
They
Yep.
are undefeated. Okay, that's a little spoiler. So I think it's Pittsburgh or Miami. I'm gonna
It's
go.
not.
I'm gonna go A Pittsburgh. You kind of gave me the help there, saying that they're undefeated. I would have thought they had one loss, but yeah, I'm gonna go A Pittsburgh.
It is not Pittsburgh. It's B, Clemson, actually, which is why I chose this question, because Clemson has underperformed in the past couple of years here, and this year they're actually 5-0 in conference play. So,
Wow.
but Pittsburgh and Miami are both undefeated, but they've played less games in their conference. So,
Okay. Okay.
all right, next question. Jeremiah Smith caught his 8th touchdown pass today. Who was the last true freshman Buckeye to do that? Was it A, Marvin Harrison Jr., B, Ted Ginn Jr., C, Chris Carter, or D, Garrett Wilson?
This is another good one.
Thank
I
you.
don't. I don't think it was Marvin Harrison because I don't think his freshman year was as great. I want to say the same thing with Garrett, even though I think Garrett had that year with Justin Fields potentially, where he had like 43 touchdown passes. I'm gonna go see Chris Carter. I feel like you're kind of baiting me.
Oh,
I'm gonna.
man.
I know he's a legend there. Is that right? I get it.
That is correct. Chris Carter in 1984. True
Batting one for
freshman.
four in trivia against you, so that's it's not great in any metric, but
Nice
we'll
work.
take it. I
Nice work.
appreciate
But Chris
it.
Carter had 8 touchdowns as a true freshman over the entirety of the season. I believe our man Jeremiah Smith is going to destroy that. So, yeah,
A beast.
good
All
job.
right. Yeah, let's get started recapping the games from this past week. I was looking today. Division One football actually started on Tuesday night this week. So this time of year, there's literally football going every single day of the week between the NFL and college. So I don't know if they have any catchy Tuesday night football songs going for those games, but I thought that was a fun fact. Wednesday, we had the big upset of Kennesaw State over Liberty. Again, not both of those teams aren't very relevant. So but it was a huge, from what I've heard, it was a huge win for Kennesaw State. Um, so take it for what it is. Thursday we get to the games that mattered. With all due respect to Liberty and Kennesaw, Syracuse Pitt. I got to fall on my sword a little bit. We had Holstein and McCord top 10 in our rankings. McCord, I saw that 5 interceptions and I was like, oof, that is the internet's undefeated on when you put stuff out there. So we probably don't have enough people checking in with us to really call us out on that. But if we did, they would be calling me out on that right now. So that
Yeah,
game there. Go ahead.
go ahead.
So that game, from a fantasy perspective, it didn't, nothing crazy. Holstein had a good day, I think, compared to his normal standard. Not an amazing day. Um, 2 touchdowns. I think the real story was Syracuse underperforming and not playing up to the standard that we've seen McCord kind of operate that offense at a high level. Any thoughts you had on Syracuse Pitt? Did you have a chance to watch that game?
I was running an errand, but I listened to it as I was running that errand, and I kind of checked in intermittently. I saw that Pittsburgh was up a substantial amount, and I was like, oh man, because I have Kyle McCord and Eli Holstein on my team, and I've been singing their praises. I think we both have this entire year. So I was like, oh man, they're up big, and it turns out that Kyle McCord threw 3 pick sixes in the first half of that game. Um, so yeah, like you said, 5 interceptions. That's not great at all. And then Syracuse, well, Pittsburgh, a majority of their points came off of those pick sixes, meaning that they did not.
Did that cut off? Did that cut off for you? Are we still like recording live streaming or not?
Oh yeah, we are. Yep.
Power through, man.
Why not?
We won't start that intro again because I think we'll have it. And if not, but yeah, that is. So I think what I was doing on my Mac, I was like swiping between windows, and I saw my green dot go like black, and I was like, oh no, what have I done? So I cannot do that. So we will correct that.
Did you hear anything that I said?
No, I think it booted me off. It booted me off.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's I had to sign back in, but I'm sure you were whispering sweet nothings. So
Absolutely.
we were on Thursday night, Syracuse Pitt. Any final thoughts on that game? Even though you probably already said it once.
I did share them because I did not lag, or I did not get booted. So just mainly that when I saw the score, Pittsburgh was up a lot, and I thought, oh goodness, that's great because Eli Holstein's on my team, and it turns out that he threw Kyle McCord threw 3 pick sixes in the first half, which I believe is a record. And so I did not have the game that I thought I did with my fantasy team. So, but that's all.
Not the kind of record you want to break.
No.
Yeah, not the kind of record you want to break. So I am, just give me 1 second here. I'm just pulling up our rankings on, or not my rankings, pulling up my fan tracks on my iPad so that way I don't get booted off again. So, all right. So moving along to Friday night, we have, let's start here. We were actually going to start the podcast with this, but then we did this little, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday thing. So you had just a blasphemous tweet. I don't know if you have it in front of you to read it to the fine folks, but in a nutshell, you were saying, I would rather watch this Louisville versus Boston College instead of the World Series. And I just thought that was crazy, considering that they hit a grand slam in the bottom of the 10th. So not that I'm a huge baseball fan. This is not a baseball podcast, but we had some good scuffle on that earlier today. And I just wanted to let the people know we share the current sideline account on X, and so sometimes you're getting Booker, sometimes you're getting Kevin, and we don't tag ourselves. So yeah, it's maybe over time people will be able to guess who is posting what, but it's been a joy to do that together. And any thoughts on the tweet heard around the world that you have?
Well, I do stand by that tweet. I think that I'm a big enough college football fan that I truly now granted that was the first time there was a grand slam, like a walk-off grand slam in the World Series. So that was no doubt big moment and a good job, Freddie Freeman. But I just love college football. College football does something for me deep in my soul to the point where I'd much rather watch that than a record moment or a moment that's never happened in the World Series. So I stand by that, but a vast majority of the people that read that tweet probably think I'm out of my mind. So, and that's okay.
And I was one of them. One other thing of note from this game was Isaac Brown, 18 carries, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns, another 3 catches. We don't really have like a trade for target segment, but I would say this is a guy, even myself, I'm like, oh, this is somebody I might try and go after for this year. But I think next year, this guy's got top 10 running back written all over him. And so I'm trying to pull him up here on where he ranks currently this year. But yeah, just an absolute beast as a freshman. He has been good pretty much every week this season. And so, yeah, I would say go after Isaac Brown. He is top 10 currently. So I don't even need to predict that for next year. He is top 10 this year. So maybe the prediction is he could finish top 1 or 3 next year. I just think yeah, he has got a lot of juice and is only, you would think, get better in that offense. So Isaac Brown, go after him, pick him up. Ja'Cory Brooks, 8 for 120, no touchdowns, but still a great day. Uh, that was the main thing. Boston College, no standout performers. Pretty much the normal type stuff from guys. But yeah, that was Friday night. Any other thoughts on Friday night?
Um, so the Louisville Boston College game, I do agree. Like Isaac Brown is the trade target. But someone else that I'd actually been offered a couple times, hey, like I'll throw in Ja'Cory Brooks into this trade. Someone was trying to sweeten the pot. And I thought to myself, I feel like the risk is too high. He's been, there's some injury history there. And so I did not bite, but Ja'Cory Brooks has established himself as the number one target at Louisville. He's an absolute stud. Obviously, like he's an Alabama guy, and so he's an alpha at Louisville. I thought that Chris Bell might be that guy, um, but that is not so. And then Colin Lacey, another speedster with Louisville, he had a pretty good game, and then decided to redshirt the rest of the year. So apparently, his agent came out with a statement that he was going to redshirt, and so um, I think Ja'Cory Brooks is another like trade target, and I am kicking myself for not taking that trade. So
Yeah, he is a senior, so might not offer much in your college ranks, but I would say even for me, I'm like, oh, he could help my NFL team, you know, possibly next year. He's been super consistent, and yeah, I would agree with that. Of go get you some Ja'Cory Brooks. So moving along to today, we're going to start with this Alabama versus Missouri. We both watched that game. As we mentioned, I think there in the before the intro, the Alabama defense was the real MVP. Was it a disappointing week for Milroe? How many points did he have today? Um, Trying to pull that
Milrow
up.
had a total of 19.6 points in our league, the way our league scores, and
19,
so
19 or 9?
19.6.
19. Like in our league, that's kind of below, I would say, what you're starting. We're playing in a best ball league, and most weeks every team has many quarterbacks, and usually 19 points is not a starter in our league. Um, and Milroe, I think we're expecting and we're hoping, hey, that 25 to 40 points is what he's shown. He was showing early in the season. Do we think that is schedule has gotten harder and he's not beaten up on cupcakes? Or do you think he's sort of, I don't want to say regressed? It does look like Alabama's leaning on the run game pretty heavy today. Justice Haynes, 79 yards and a touchdown. Cam Miller, 48 yards, 2 touchdowns. I put in my notes, Alabama defense was kind of the MVP. Every time I looked up, they were intercepting the Missouri quarterbacks until J.R. Blood, shout out, got in there and led them down the field. But back to Milroe, one, are you worried? I know you had a big trade for him this year. For the folks listening, do you think he's a trade target? Hey, buy low while he's kind of maybe disappointing somebody. So will you trade him away? Would you trade for him? Where do you stand as a guy who traded Milroe early in the season? Are you nervous? What are your thoughts on Milroe?
I would be trying to get Milroe personally, and I'm not just saying that because I currently have him on my roster. I think with the new coach, things are just different than they used to be. With Nick Saban, he was in a groove, and then the first 2 weeks of of college football, he was putting up like 40 points. So the Nick Saban effect wore off. Kalen DeBoer coaches a different way. He operates a different way. I think that Jalen Milroe is an elite talent. I think when he's on, he's got quite the arm and he's got speed. Yeah, he's got crazy speed, and so I would actually be trying to trade for him personally. I think his draft stock is only going to get better as we go. It looks like he has a game next week against, or no, they have a bye week next week, and then following that they have LSU, Mercer, Oklahoma, and then Auburn. I think that this bye week he's going to get right. So in this bye week, my recommendation is go after Milroe.
Yeah. You took the words pretty much out of my mouth there. Great playoff schedule. Like we said, he was early in the season. He was beating up on cupcakes. I also think in a more competitive game, he's forced to throw the ball more. And so when you're up big, game script is kind of, hey, we're going to hand this off and get on to the next week. So I would say with LSU and Oklahoma, should be a competitive game, but their defenses also aren't ranked super high. So we should expect more shootouts. Sort of the same thing with Auburn. Mercer, you could run into the same issue a little bit, where maybe the run game takes over in the second half. But excuse me. But yeah, I would agree. Trade for him all day. So, any final thoughts on Alabama, Missouri? Any other fantasy things that stood out to you? Kind of a quiet day. Ryan Williams, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, he had a few targets. I don't think that he has been quite the target that he was in the first few weeks. I also have him on my team, and I've been a little disappointed with the output. But Kendrick Law is back. Jeremy Bernard has been getting a few more touches or looks. So I think they're spreading the ball around, and that's better for Alabama to do that. So I saw something on X earlier today, though. Apparently, there was a video that was caught of Eli Drinkowitz mouthing. He was talking to someone on the Alabama defense that the score would not be what it was if they had their quarterback in the game. So I don't know if he's going to get in trouble for that. But it was an interesting thought because Luther Burden has had quite a disappointing year for a number, for a first round draft pick. So
yeah. I think how about that? Well, it's not a rest of season even. I think Luther Burden, his NFL prospects, it's a great trade target for someone who's maybe disappointed that they have him on their team this year and just not producing as highly as we thought. I think he's still ranked decently high. He looks like the 23rd best receiver on the season. So it's not a dud, but the hype around him was a lot higher than that. I would say with like Tet McMillan, again, the hype was there. He's the number 3 overall receiver. Luther Burden is getting that same kind of hype and just is not producing quite as high. I was going to say on Ryan Williams, sort of a trade target, but I don't think people are going to be low on him after a couple down weeks. I mean, he got 20 targets last week. So definitely, he's always a trade target if you can, but I don't think people's value of him is going to be where like, oh, you can buy this guy low because he had 4 for 53. Like, I think he's a stud and everybody kind of knows it. So definitely put in your offers, but yeah. All right, moving along to Texas versus Vandy. We are a little bit of a bounce back game-ish, but also is Vandy a good team? Like, what is this year happening, man? We got Vandy and Indiana as 2 top 25 respectable schools. So yeah, I looked at one point. I didn't watch this game. I looked at one point, and it was Texas had a pretty good lead. And then you look at the final score, and you're like, wow, how did they only beat them by 3 points? again, I say a bounce back game for yours, but maybe not. You like the 288 and 3 touchdowns, but then 2 interceptions. I can't think that Sark is going to be too thrilled about that. On a side note, Quinn Ewers has a great commercial that just came out where he's kind of like making light of having a backup and Arch Manning. So if you haven't seen that, check that out. I thought that was pretty well done. But again, is he focusing a little too much on the NIL, drinking the Kool-Aid? And Quinn, we need you to produce. Having that good of a backup is not that could come back to bite you. So. One other thing of note in this game, DeAndre Moore. I think he had his second touchdown pretty early in the game, and I like looked him up because I didn't recognize his name at first. I was like, oh, I'm sure he's on somebody's team. And spoiler alert, we'll see how organized we are. He is not. He is not.
He's
14%
rostered,
but he is available, and he's had one other blow up week on the season. So again, not somebody that you're going to be able to trust every week, but I like our chances on a guy who is in a great offense and is producing. I'm just looking up sophomore. So I know he's not on our waiver wire, so we're not very organized right now. I would venture, and we might see some surprises or changes to that list there here later in the pod, but I would probably rank him pretty high as a guy who's available and is probably available in most leagues. And he has had several weeks of really good production, and I don't think it's going anywhere. I think he is going to continue to have opportunity. He's gone over 90 yards in 2 games and had 2 touchdowns in 2 different games. And so the other weeks kind of quiet. I would say in best ball, like we play, hey, you'll take those blow up weeks. That's definitely the kind of player you want to have in best ball. So any other thoughts you have on this Texas versus Vandy game?
Well, I am pretty surprised at how poorly Texas looked. So I don't know if Texas is just not the real deal, or if Georgia shook them up by, with the beating that they took last week, or if Vandy truly is the real deal. Like growing up watching college football, Vandy has been the cupcake for my Tennessee Volunteers, even though they're considered a rival. This year with Diego Pavia, I'm just not sure. I think they're a pretty gritty team, and even though they lost this game, I believe they stay in the top 25, and I think they're going to give people a run for their money for the rest of the year. So, Quinn Ewers, I think you're right, spot on there. He's probably focusing a bit too much on the NIL money, and should be focusing a little bit more on keeping the ball in his own players' hands as opposed to the opposite team. So, that's just my thought.
Yeah, and Pavia is probably not available in your league, but you see just the power of having a running quarterback will keep less talented teams in the game. When your quarterback can extend drives and can get some yards with his legs, that's a huge advantage, especially in college. Because if you're an elite athlete and you can run as a quarterback, we see that in the NFL where you need to really be elite to do that. A lot of times, guys like, oh wow, these D tackles are just as fast as I am. But in college, especially, if you can scoot, you're going to keep your team in games. And I think Pavia is a big reason, probably one of the biggest. This might be a segment later in the podcast or even for the off season, but kind of there's a lot of, I would say Florida State is a great example of the transfer portal gone wrong. Pavia is a great example of transfer portal gone right, where hey, they brought in a quarterback from another school, and he is yeah, like you said, this is not your grandpa's Vanderbilt team. Especially this game, I thought Texas would have learned from Alabama's mistake of taking them for granted and come in and put foot to backside. But Vandy's got some something going there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, interestingly enough, I know we can't fully trust the Fantrax percentage as far as like what percentage someone is rostered. But Diego Pavia is actually on Fantrax, rostered only 45% of the time. So if he's available in your league, I would probably go after him personally, depending on what your quarterback situation is. So,
and I wonder in that Fantrax, this might be a great question to ask the community on X or even, I don't know, we reach out to Fantrax, but I wonder if like our league, as we've mentioned, is only Power 4. But there's other leagues that it's pretty common where all of Division 1. And so I could see a scenario where in all of Division 1, there's so many quarterbacks producing at lower ranked schools, but are putting up good fantasy numbers versus, hey, this guy is putting up good numbers for, or, okay numbers, pretty good numbers, and contributing to winning. So I wonder if some of our thoughts on Fantrax at times is that where, hey, those represent all of Division 1, and maybe that's why it is tricky. And again, that's partly why we're trying to do this podcast, to help bring more information to Campus Canton leagues and college fantasy football, because it's kind of navigate through through the information. So any other thoughts on, so it looks like that Texas A&M game is, let's talk the Texas A&M LSU. That one just wrapped up, and we'll be getting our Colorado game on now. I'm trying to pull that open now. So yeah, shout out again. We don't want to toot our own horn because that doesn't, we want to stay humble. Got to stay humble and hungry, man. No, I will give. You had mentioned before the podcast, and Marcel Reed, I don't believe, started this game, and I did not watch the whole game, so I'm not sure what exactly happened. But he was on our waiver wire pickups, I believe, week 2. And as you said, this week, we drink our own Kool-Aid here at the Sideline Podcast. Like, if we're putting somebody in our waiver wire pickup or in our rankings, like, it's because we believe in them. We think, like, hey, if I've got a spot, I'm going to put this guy on my roster. So yeah, we're going to admit when we mess up. I would say Marcel Reed's future is really bright, and I was he's still on my roster, and I was a little disappointed. He got the starting role, and then he kind of lost it. Some freshman woes, maybe freshman or sophomore. I don't remember which class he is, but what a game from him. I opened this up, and I was like, wow, he's got 3 rushing touchdowns. Like, are they using him as a running back? And then, yeah, I would just turn the game on, and he's throwing a massive bomb down the field. So, yeah, shout out to us on that. How did Nuss Bus do for you? Looks like 3 interceptions.
He threw for 405 yards, but he did have 3 interceptions, and some of them were pretty ugly balls that he was just trying to force. But he still threw for quite a few yards. So I'm not disappointed. He did help me win the week still. But Marcel Reed is the story. I mean, he only threw 2 passes in that game. He was 2 for 2 for 70. So his average was 35 yards. But the other piece of that is that he was 9 for 62 in rushing. And so and 3 touchdowns. So he is obviously that dual threat. I don't know if you can count on the passing ability long term. I don't know that he's going to be 100% every week as far as his percentages go, but he's got some wheels. And so, yeah, great job on that pick. That was you.
I pulled open X, and the first thing was Connor transferring to Incarnate Word after this with this subreddit.
Nice.
That is awesome. I'm trying to figure out why. Yeah, it just says he got benched from Lee Harvey, Musick fan for life. I don't know if you're right, but I'm going to go ahead and trust him on this one that he got benched. 6 for 18 in a primetime game. I would say that the real story here is, Texas A&M 49 rushes for 242 yards, and that includes negative 14 yards from Wegman. So just and then you see LSU. So what are your thoughts there? I know you're high on Caden Durham. Just a rough day at the office for him. 11 carries, 15 yards. He had four catches for 56. This is probably good Texas A&M rush defense, but yeah, that to me is the story that Texas A&M ran the ball for 49 times, and LSU 23 times for 24 yards. Is just a brutal stat line. Yeah, what are your thoughts on Caden Durham? Obviously, he's a freshman, he's a phenom, but yeah, any thoughts on that on what went wrong today?
I would go get him. If there's any way
Yeah,
you could go get him, I would go get him. I know that I think Texas A&M just has a stout D line, and they put a cap on him today. But I mean, yeah, he's a true freshman, and he has been lighting it up. So I would get after it, especially after
yeah,
this week. This might be the only week where you can. This might be the lowest price that you can get for Caden Durham for the rest of his college season. So, or his college career.
yeah. And I don't know exactly where I'd rank Nussmeier's trade value other than having an awesome name. But I did read something this week where he is quickly moving up the ranks in NFL mock drafts and making a case for him being the first, one of the first quarterbacks off the board. I would say with Carson Beck having a little bit of a, you know, a down season, if Nussbus can do one of those roll left, switch the hips and launch it 60 yards like Zach Wilson, he might be able to sneak into the early first round. So I would say he's a good trade target as well, someone you acquired in our league. And I think his prospects as an NFL player are going to be good. You want to see him clean up the interceptions, but yeah, I would say his prospects the rest of this year and going forward is pretty good. He's got 2,222 yards, 18 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I believe that has not updated on ESPN, so those touchdowns and interceptions is probably 20 and 9. But he's having a great year. He's got NFL size, NFL arm. Yeah, I'd expect him to go early in the first round. Let's see here. Big games from LSU wide receivers. Anderson and Lacey lit it up pretty good. Yeah, this is a funny SEC matchup of like you would think everything was kind of in LSU's favor, and then Texas Sam comes out and says, you know what, we're going to run the ball, and it's big boy football in the SEC. So, any other thoughts you have recapping before we move on to our second half of the podcast? You still there?
Yep, I apologize. It looks like my microphone just connected to my wife's uh podcast or whatever she was listening to. So I did
Oh,
miss what you were just saying. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, before we move on to second half, do you have any other thoughts on games, fantasy scores from today, or action before we move looking forward to next week?
Well, so one of the last things I heard you say was about Nussmeier. I tried to trade for him, and I was successful, but I paid quite a bit for him. Uh, I'd say good luck. He has an elite arm, and if Jaden Daniels was not quarterback at LSU last year, I truly believe Nussmeier could have started at almost any other program, because he has a crazy arm. So yeah, he had a bad night with 3 interceptions, but he is kind of the prototypical quarterback for the NFL, and so um, his price is probably only going up from here. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I definitely go get him if you can. Um, all right, so let's. This is about as professional as it gets. I sent you a message. If you can look at that, I'll edit that out in the podcast and live streamers. You get
I'm
a little
not
bit of admin
seeing
over the live
I'm
stream.
not
So
seeing any message.
text to your phone.
Oh.
All right, so we're going to move along to our second half. Again, we kind of recapped the day. We're going to move forward to next week. And we're going to start here with our rankings. These are our first rankings, as we learned this week on X, on the world of digital content, that the internet is undefeated. And so, sorry, you know how when you're talking about something and you instinctively do that said thing? That's what I just did. I was talking about X, and I opened an X instead of what I wanted to do.
Nice.
So we are going to move forward first with our quarterback rankings. And take these pauses that just need to. Sorry. Keep your indoor thoughts in, Kevin. Okay. So, quarterbacks, we've got Dylan Gabriel has a good matchup this coming week against Michigan. We're liking Jackson Dart against Arkansas. Nico is back from bye. He kind of had a down week against. They won the game, but he just didn't have a crazy good week last week. But yeah, I think he bounces back against Kentucky. Avery Johnson, how about him being a number 8 quarterback on the sorry, it's not, man. Just struggling, man.
No,
For
you're
those
okay.
of you who we are not full-time podcasters this season of life, so
You had quite a day though.
yeah, we've had quite a day, so we're powering through though, because we're trying to stay consistent for the fine folks. There we go. Avery Johnson is a number 10 quarterback on the season. We like him this upcoming week in a matchup against. Gosh, we're just tripping through. I'm about to just cut this whole segment. Against Houston, good matchup against them. We like KJ Jefferson, Kyron Drones versus Syracuse. I put Carson Beck as our top 10 or as our number 10. Honestly, I was a little nervous. 1.7 points last week.
Yeah.
I think he bounces back against Florida. What are your thoughts on Carson Beck bouncing back? Does he not? Am I crazy to have him at number 10?
I don't know if this is just a biased opinion. I mean, I don't pull against or for Georgia. I just not on the Carson Beck bandwagon. I think that he's a stud. He starts for Georgia. So he is obviously he has talent. But he's not blowing the world away this year. And I think the running attack for Georgia and their defense is really the highlight of that offense. And so if you have Carson Beck on your fantasy team, obviously you're not trading him away unless you're getting a haul. But because of the NFL, draft prospect that he is, but I'm just not on the same page as the vast majority of people on Carson Beck. I would much rather have. I would actually, to be honest, I rather have Eli Holstein than Carson Beck rest of season. And I don't know.
I don't think you're crazy on that. I think this coming week, I just think he bounces back, I guess is why I put him in the top 10. Holstein's been a monster. He did okay this past week. I think he's going to get back to some big scoring weeks. When I look at Beck the week before the Texas game, he had 30.16 points against Bama. He had 27. So like he's gonna produce. I just think better days are ahead, and I think one of those better days is this coming week. So we'll see on that. Any other thoughts on quarterback rankings for this coming week?
I think you've done a great job with that. I don't have any other thoughts.
Again, our rankings come out. These are kind of our early rankings. We're gonna also we release them on X on Wednesday, so keep an eye out for that post of kind of where we're thinking, injury updates, and any tweaks that we make until then. So, moving along to running backs. I think the moral of the story with running backs in college is just trust your studs. I mean, I was looking up Caleb Johnson oh, what do you do today? And just like tore Northwestern a new one, And so you can really trust your running backs more I feel like you can trust college running backs more than any other position. I don't know if that's every year, but especially this year, I feel like they've been the most trustworthy position to have. And yeah, so Caleb Johnson, a no-brainer at number one. We like Amarion Hampton this week. Again, he's so consistent, so solid. Can't not put Woody Marks on our rankings after what he did this week. Again, it's you don't want to overreact and say, "Oh, he did it this week; he'll do it again." But we're both super high on him. I actually traded him to you last year. I think it was last year.
Yep.
And before he went to USC, and honestly, I don't think USC has been using him to his full potential. He is a PPR monster. He should be scoring massive weeks on the regular, and I hope that the season's not over, but I hope that they can continue to use him in that way. I'm trying to figure out where he is. Let's join him. Must have missed it. Oh, yeah, there he is. Okay, yeah, he's a number 7 running back on the year. So he's having a good year. I'm wondering if that's a little boom busty or if he's been pretty steady Eddie for you. Also got Taj Brooks. I heard today, I have not fact checked it, but I believe he leads the Big 12 in rushing, which is kind of a surprise with Ollie Gordon there, some other good runners. He is the top runner. And then rounding it out, Desmond Reed. He had a little bit of a down week, but he's been so solid for Pittsburgh. And so he's a pass catcher, I believe. Man, we're just not loading right now. Come on, internet. Yeah, I just think he bounced back. I believe he had around 5 points last week or this week. Yeah, 4.7 this week, but he's going to bounce back. This guy's a running back, and he had 11 targets in week against like 3 weeks ago. He's had a 5-target game, an 8-target game. You love to see that kind of pass catcher volume. I don't think I'd be able to trade for him because of I think the guy that has him in our league and his NFL team. But this is a guy, I think he's a stud, and Pitt has a nice history of sending people to the NFL. I think this is another guy who's going to get his shot. So one other guy, I don't have him on my rankings. I was trying to look. I heard this today in the. Oh man, where is he? Let me go this route. What are your thoughts on running backs? Anybody we should add or subtract? Do you think?
Well, I do have some. I mean, I've got let's see here, one running back on my waiver wire pickups that I feel like um, should be added this week, but I don't know that I'd put this individual in your top list like you have. So um, I think yeah, you covered it pretty well.
Right on. Here we go. So Savion Williams for TCU. This guy's a monster. He had a great game today, but do you know how tall he is as a running back?
Savion Williams, actually, he's a wide receiver.
Okay, is he wide receiver? Because in the game today, they put him up there with a bunch of other running backs, and we're talking about him like he was a running back. Interesting, huh?
I'm gonna Google it right now.
I'm wrong on that. Then he is a yeah. No, it was like during the broadcast, they put him up on the screen. I wanted to like screenshot it, but they put him up with like Eddie George, Derrick Henry, like all of these like top tier running backs. So I was like, man, yeah, like today he had 11 carries for 72 yards and a touchdown. Like
I'm seeing
I'm a run or that's not I'm a
he's listed as a wide receiver, but I'm seeing an article here about proving to be an asset as a running back, and so I think he is an elite athlete. that can do both.
Yeah. I wonder, like, again, what they were comparing him to was like, Eddie George, Derrick Henry, like, I don't remember. There's one other tall running back, but I was like, man, will a 6'5" running back make it in the NFL? But he's a big boy, and also has some explosivity. I just butchered that, but yeah, I that caught my eye today on the broadcast. I think he had caught like a little screen pass or something for 75 yards, and he was his first two of his first four catches or two of his first four targets were touchdowns today. So just a really explosive player. It looks like yeah, it's not working out well to do that, but. Oh, I see. He's the number 2 ranked Williams. Doesn't mean he's the number 2 ranked running back wide receiver on the year. But anyway, just somebody to keep an eye on. He is ranked as a 19th best wide receiver. I am curious if that usage at running back continues. Again, back to the PPR, it's just more touches. If he's getting the ball as a running back and able to catch the ball, I think that only helps helps TCU's offense. So I would say, again, just someone noteworthy from the day. It's good to see Jack Beck respond a little bit. He didn't have a massive day, 4 for 77, but a pretty good day. He was on our top 10. How about Caleb Douglas, a waiver wire target, 9 for 140. Please don't make us put this guy on a waiver wire third week. He is too good to be sitting on waivers. So I believe he was available in our league last week, and this should be the last week that he's available because this guy is producing at a pretty high level. So again, we will release our full rankings on Wednesday. That'll have our wide receivers, quarterbacks, running backs. We don't do tight ends mainly because the tight end position in college is so volatile. It's hard there's a couple guys who produce regularly, but then everybody else, they're pretty touchdown dependent. And so that's really why we haven't been doing the tight end rankings to this point. All right, moving along. Why don't you take it away here? You got our top 5 waiver wires for this week. I know we've been kind of going back and forth on this, and I would say as a collective we've been doing pretty good. If you've been following along, drinking the Kool-Aid, then you're doing all right. So yeah, why don't you fire away, starting with Justice Ellison. I saw you tweeted about him earlier. Tell us about him, and then if you want to just take it away here on these top 5.
Absolutely. So to start, I wanted to I'll name out the names that we've got. So I've got Justin Ellison. He's a running back for Justice Ellison, running back for Indiana. We've got Noah Thomas. He's a wide receiver for Texas A&M. Traylon Ray, wide receiver for West Virginia. Kenyon Sadiq, tight end for Oregon. And Chris Hilton, a wide receiver for LSU. And so with Justice Ellison, I've seen a couple tweets on this guy, and I've watched some film. He runs angry. He's 5'9", 210. He's had 514 yards and 8 touchdowns this year, averaging 7 yards per touch. And so he's not widely taken. I don't have that percentage on Fantrax, but again, we can't always trust that percentage that's displayed on the waiver wire. I have Noah Thomas. He's a wide receiver for Texas A&M as my number 2 waiver wire pickup. I actually had this guy on my team last year. I was holding on to him, thinking maybe he would turn into something this year, and he hasn't produced quite to the level that as far as when I dropped him, he hadn't been producing to the level that I wanted him to be on my team, but he's gotten 21 receptions for 289 yards and 3 touchdowns. And this last game against LSU, he had some larger, like long balls, some deep threat ability that seems to be he's showcasing that. And so if you need a home run hitter, I would say Noah Thomas. He may not provide that solid floor for you, but on any given week, he may provide um, the home run ability there. So, secondly, I've got thirdly, I've got Traylon Ray. He's had 22. This is a wide receiver for West Virginia. He's 6'1", 195. He's had 22 receptions for 288 yards and 2 touchdowns. He seems to be a pretty prevalent uh, contributor for West Virginia. Today they beat Arizona 31-26. In this game, he had 2 receptions for 78 yards and 1 touchdown. So again, another home run hitter. I think that depending on what your league looks like, you might be if you're on the waiver wire, you may be looking for those home run hitters, um, especially as we get later on into that season. And so, fourthly, I've got Kenyon Sadiq. He is a tight end for Oregon, 6'3", 245. I believe I looked at his 247. He's a 5-star. He's a crazy athlete. And as I was watching that game today, I heard the announcers say they had an interview with the coaches, and the coaches had mentioned like, "Hey, we need to get this guy involved. He is a star athlete, and we need to get him involved." And it looked like in this game against Illinois, where they blew them out 38-9, he was pretty well involved. And I know Ferguson has been their primary tight end has been dealing with some injury issues. So I'm actually personally targeting.
What year is he for Sadiq?
He's a sophomore.
Oh yeah. So
Yep.
you got to think they're going to bring in another transfer quarterback, or they're going to be able to recruit a top quarterback. So yeah, I like that move for the future, as well as if he's getting some run this year. So
well, and they have so Oregon, after Dylan Gabriel leaves, I actually have the replacement quarterback, Dante Moore, and so he's out of Detroit, Michigan, 5-star, and so I think that I don't know how well he'll do next year. Dylan Gabriel has obviously put up some big numbers. I don't know if it'll be the same, but I think that he's got the talent and pedigree there. So, and then my last target is Chris Hilton Jr., wide receiver for LSU. I think he was a primary target, but he's been dealing with some ankle issues, and so he hasn't been in a ton of games. But he had let's see here. This game against Texas A&M, he had 2 receptions for 36 yards. But the previous game, I think he put up some good numbers. And so I like Nussmeier, and so I like having pieces of his receiving core. And so Chris Hilton is another guy that's available on our waiver wires. And again, I'm putting names out that are available on our waiver wires. We have a lot of teams on those rosters. We have a lot of space, and so there's probably guys that are available on other people's waiver wires that are maybe they've got they're a little more prolific in the scoring. But Chris Hilton Jr. is someone I'm targeting as well.
Yeah. No, very good. All right, I'm looking at next week's slate of games. We'll wrap it up here. I think it's probably going to be the live stream, record the podcast on Tuesday, man. We've got Pitbull Stadium, New Mexico versus Florida State. I didn't know Pitbull has a stadium named after him. I'm guessing that's like Pitbull. I'm guessing that's like I'm guessing that's like Pitbull, the music guy, not
it is the rapper.
Dog.
It is.
That's really, really funny. Yet again, we've got games Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. A couple big ones next week. We got Ohio State, Penn State. How's that a morning game? That's got to be a white out nighttime in Beaver Stadium. That should be a night game. I don't know why that's 9 a.m. Tennessee, Kentucky on Tennessee, Indiana. Yeah, I'm trying to see what other games we got going on here.
I think Georgia, Florida is going to be a much more competitive game.
Oregon's got Michigan in the Big House. Yeah, yep. I would agree with that, especially with if Lagway is there. We talked about that, running quarterbacks. That boy, he can throw too. So he's a runner. He can run, but he's got a live arm, and Yeah, I would agree with that. It's kind of like division opponents in the NFL. I know the SEC has expanded quite a bit, but Florida Georgia, that rivalry goes back, and I would expect the Gators to come in and put up a good showing. I'm not seeing any like prime evening games. USC Washington, that's good, but both teams are 500. It seems like that our best option is that Penn State versus Ohio State game. So the bummer is that's 9 a.m. So we like to recap the games, but we could always recap those Tuesday games. So Louisiana Texas State is sure to not disappoint. So how about here's a question for you: does Kennesaw State go win 2 in a row and beat Western Kentucky 5-2 on the road? What do you give their chances to repeat?
No, they absolutely don't. They were, I believe they were 0-6 against Liberty. That was a special night at home. They do not continue that against Western Kentucky. I think, yeah, I would
So
be very surprised.
I'm seeing a couple of these games are TBD. Like Texas A&M, South Carolina, it shows maybe 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern start. It actually shows that for Tennessee as well, and then Duke Miami is 6-2 Duke versus 8-0 Miami. So I think there's probably some of this schedule is going to get worked out. So to be continued on, but big game Ohio State, Penn State in Beaver Stadium. That should be the Big Ten and the SEC. There's a lot of jockeying for position, trying to get to that title game, trying to get the first round bye. Obviously, those conferences are going to send 3 or 4 teams at least to the college playoffs. So both of those teams have good shot.
Pittsburgh
I think that's
SMU
all we
is
right.
another potential.
Oh yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yep. So, any other final thoughts you have to wrap it up here on this lovely Saturday evening?
I do not think so. I think it's been a good day of college football. Next weekend will be, I think there's a few more matchups that are a bit more intriguing than the ones that happened um, this weekend. Here, maybe this is how we should finish, or one of the last things we should do. Did you win your week in Fantrax?
Hmm. Okay, and that actually reminds me. So I am winning, and I have another easy matchup next week. So our standings right now, again, my roster is decimated. I've gone full send on NFL. So, sorry, here, I'm just pulling it up. I'm gonna be 3-6. The 6 seed gets into the playoffs. The 6 seed right now is 4-4. So I'm potentially one game out of playoffs. And I believe last year we had right around 500. So that I'm like almost I have such a good NFL team that I'm like, should I sell off some NFL pieces to try and sneak into the playoffs here
Oh,
in
no, you should
college?
not.
What would you say?
No, you should not, because I
Yeah.
want to win college.
Well, yeah, I don't think I'm going to win. I just am like, I'm, my team has been doing good as of late. So I'm like, oh, you're telling me there's a chance. But when I see that I've only scored, I'm actually the lowest scorer in our league on the season. Even though we've got an 0-8 team and he's outscored me by 200 points. So, yeah, I don't think that's the move for me, but I do think. So, yeah, I am winning this week. Keep performers kind of on the back, like we've said. Drink our own Kool-Aid. I like this segment. Kind of recap our teams. That's a fun idea. Man, we talked about this earlier today. Jaden Davis, you traded him to me earlier this season. I'm like, I'm just itching for him to get in because I'm like, did I make a good trade or not? Like, I can't really tell until I see what he's got. But my 2 quarterbacks are Miller Moss. It was good to see him finally show up. I traded away Carson Beck before the season, and Miller Moss was kind of my, hey, I hope this guy turns out to be pretty good. Also, shout out waiver wire segment. Sawyer Robertson, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, 35 points. Just another great performance. As we've talked about, his opportunity with Baylor, with the Big 12, he honestly might be somebody I trade away because he's producing and he's not going to help my team. But his playoff schedule is marvelous. So, yeah, if our league mates are listening, I had Devon Booth. I've been kind of waiting for this guy to show up. He's kind of disappointed me, and I almost dropped him. Sorry, just pulling up his weeks. Yeah, this is his first time getting over 20 points, but the last 2 weeks he had 19 points and 21. So he's been a slow starter, but he's got some PPR skills, and yeah, I'm really encouraged by him. He's a senior, so again, maybe somebody I should trade away. LJ Martin for BYU, he's been solid for me. Josh Williams, I thought he would be the starter for LSU, and Caden, like you're high on that on Caden, and he's kind of taken over that backfield. Neziah Hunter, waiver wire shout out. But yeah, other than that, I've got a lot of puppies. I've got a lot of freshmen that I'm sort of waiting on, and so it's been shocking to see my team do well. I am playing one of the worst teams in our league this week, so we're both better in the NFL, and so we're just getting through this college week. How about you? What does your college campus canteen look like?
Well, I was down by 40 points earlier this afternoon, but I pulled it out by 20 points. I scored 230 by the end, 230 to 211. And so the big performers for me, I have Jalen Milroe. I have, let's see here, Al McCord, Eli Holstein. I actually thought those guys would be the ones that pulled out the win for me. It turns out Avery Johnson and Garrett Nussmeyer were my saviors. Avery Johnson put up 30 points. Garrett Nussmeyer put up 25. Damian Martinez, he's been sharing the backfield with Mark Fletcher, which has had me a little concerned. But Damian Martinez had 2 rushing touchdowns and 148 yards and put up 29 points in our league. And so he helped me out. Big surprise, Braylon Russell. Goodness gracious, I'm forgetting the guy that normally starts for Arkansas.
Jackson, right?
Yeah. Jaquindon Jackson.
Yeah, Jaquindon Jackson.
He's hurt. Yeah, so Braylon Russell, like just true freshman, big old boy, goes out there and gets me 20 points. So that's a big win for me.
6'1", 203.
Yeah, he's a big old boy.
Yeah,
There's actually been 2 people that have been super disappointing for me. Evan Stewart and Antoine Juice Wells Jr. Evan Stewart had a great week last week, but other than that, he's been pretty pedestrian. There's a lot of wide receivers at Oregon that have put up big numbers. Antoine or Juice Wells Jr., I thought that he was going to do better because Trey Harris was out, but it turns out Jackson Dart just started throwing to other people. And so he's been kind of disappointing as well. Big win for me. I found out today that RJ Maryland, tight end for SMU, is out for the rest of the year. So he was an NFL prospect. I'm probably going to drop him because he's not going to help me win this year in the NCAA. But big pickup was Jack Endries for Cal. He's been putting up some numbers, and he's been my stalwart on my tight end core. And so pulled out the win, and I'm feeling like I'm coming from behind almost every week, but doing okay.
I think that's you have a lot of guys in prime time. So a lot of your team. I mean, this week you were quite a few guys on bye, but when you have several players that are playing in those late games because they're on good teams, it probably makes you sweat it out a little more. One funny thing I saw with a Croman Hook, I think that's how you pronounce that, for Florida State. I don't even remember the post, but I saw like a tweet on like almost speaking really positively of him, and I knew they were playing. Florida State was playing Miami, and so I was like, did this freshman beat Miami? And then I open up the box score, and it's like, no, they lost by a crazy amount. But just all of the ragdolling of Florida State that we've had this year, and I thought they finally had found their quarterback, but I'm sure he played decent, but yeah, it didn't seem like he had a breakout game. So, all right, I think that's going to be all for this evening. Again, thanks for joining. You can follow us on X for more content throughout the week. We're releasing our waiver wires, rankings, different things to try and provide value to your college fantasy football team, your Campus of Canton team. So yeah, check us out on there, also on YouTube. And until next time.